John Vittas joined with Maryland head coach John Szefc before the 2015 season. And Coach, first of all, congratulations on an amazing run last year. And you guys really accomplished a lot as a team. Making that run late in the postseason, what was that like for you personally?
I mean, it was a lot of fun. You know, I've been, 8 NCAA tournaments previous to last year, but last year was a little different. You know, obviously, as a head coach, it's always a little bit more special as a head coach than as an assistant. But to see that group of guys kind of fix themselves midway through the season. I mean, you know, every team goes through a bad point, just like we did, you know, after Boston College and James Madison. And those guys were able to kind of right the ship pretty quickly after that lull in the season. And they really didn't look back a whole lot, you know, and that's a rare thing to see. And I was really kind of happy for them, you know, happy for our assistant coaches because all the hard work those guys put in, and you know, it really kind of accelerated, I think, the growth of the program.
A lot of cool historical notes about last year. First program that had 3 straight winning seasons since 1978. First ACC title game appearance since '76. First NCAA tournament appearance since '71, and first super regional appearance in school history. Out of all that stuff, what are you most proud of?
Man. Well, I mean, off the field, we also had a perfect APR score last year. We had 1,000 APR score, which is pretty difficult in baseball.
And that's grades, right?
That's a combination of grades and also retention, as far as having your players come back. And you know, you don't lose points for losing guys to pro ball. But so off the field, that was probably one of the things I might be most proud of. But on top of that, from a winning standpoint, the fact that we were able to win 4 games in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I hate to look back and say since '71, because none of us were really here. We had nothing to do with a lot of things that's happened since then. But you know, a lot of programs will go to the NCAA tournament for the first time in X amount of years and just struggle to be competitive. And I think the fact that our guys were able to go down and be very kind of businesslike in Columbia and do what they did there against as hard of an atmosphere that I've ever coached in, and then go to Virginia, who was top ranked at that time, and win a game there, and you know, be competitive throughout the whole super regional. I mean, that's something that it's just very, very difficult to do, you know. So for a group that had no postseason experience, I guess that's my point. So.
This is your 3rd year here in the program, and obviously we talked about what you've accomplished. Has the rise of the program gone quicker than you could have reasonably expected?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, I mean, I can't sit there and say that, you know, in July of 2012, that we'd have thought, yeah, we'll be winning a super regional in the 2nd year. I mean, you know, hope that's going to happen eventually. You can't really put a timetable on it, but I think we were lucky that when we got it, there were some really good players here, and we were able to help to develop those guys, and those guys got along very well, and were able to kind of play together and not be selfish and kind of share a lot of things, and they just developed a really good chemistry together.
And along those lines, one thing you always talk about is keeping a blue-collar mentality,
Yep.
And that's something that this team really seemed to embrace last year. How do you instill that in the guys?
Well, I mean, we talk about it a whole lot. You know, we try not to get too involved with the frills of college athletics or college baseball in general. I mean, we just try to stay day to day and kind of get our preparation done and not look too far ahead. I think one thing that helps is that as last year's team kind of was able to understand that idea, you have a lot of guys back from last year's team. So it's not like you're starting from scratch this year trying to instill that whole approach, because it's there. You just have to kind of polish it every day.
61 years in the ACC. The change for the university is a very big one. I know you have a lot of ACC ties.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss the Chick-fil-A and the Bojangles and all the stuff that comes with the Mid-Atlantic. But what are you going to miss most about your time in the ACC?
I probably just the relationships. You know, like I consider a lot of those coaching staffs. You know, we have a lot of friends in that conference, and I respect those guys. You know, they have very good programs, and they built them, and there's a lot of tradition there. And it's just a great college baseball conference. I mean, that and the competition part of it. I mean, who wouldn't miss that being a baseball coach. So, and I mean, I know the Big Ten will have very similar similar competitions, we'll develop similar friendships there. So I'm not worried about that. But I mean, if I were to answer that question, that's what it would be, I think.
Speaking of the Big Ten now, you head into a completely new conference, fresh batch of teams and players to scout and all that. Yep. What's your biggest concern?
I'd say I don't really have like a really big concern. My only thing that is a little different is going to be going to different places, kind of going in what you would call uncharted waters. So when you're going to places like Michigan and Purdue and Northwestern, Ohio State, you know, they're good. Those guys are good. I mean, and anytime you're going to play at a new place, you're still trying to feel your way through it as far as how the park plays, just the, you know, where you're staying around, it, you know, how everything goes there, you know. And I'd be kind of interested to see how, you know, how we kind of get treated in moving into that conference by everybody in general. Not really so much the Big Ten people, but the programs and the umpires and all that kind of stuff, you know.
When you look at the schedule for this season, obviously it looks very different being in a new conference, and you can't control the Big Ten schedule. But right. One of the reasons for your success last year could have been the strength of schedule. You guys played 24 games against ranked opponents last season. Yeah. This year, only 8. How big of a concern is that for you? And when you have to play in the postseason against these top-notch teams day in and day out, how much of a concern is that based on your regular season schedule this year?
Well, I mean, we try to schedule strong in our non-conference games as well. I mean, we got Fullerton coming in here. The first 2 tournaments we'll play in will be pretty strong tournaments. You know, there's a few teams in the Big Ten that are preseason ranked. Bottom line is, if you're playing a good strength of schedule, which I think we have, if you're winning games, you'll be in the postseason. And if you don't, you won't be. And that's really all it comes down to. You know, I mean, was last year's schedule a little stiffer weekend to weekend on paper? Probably. But you have to win, too. I mean, you have to win series. You have to win on the road. So I feel really confident that if we have success within our schedule with all the strong road games we play, with having the 3 really strong series we have coming in here, that we should be a postseason team.
From a personnel standpoint, the good news is you returned 6 of your 8 starters in the field and 9 of your top 12 pitchers from last year. The bad news is you lose a lot up the middle in Charlie White and Blake Schmidt, both guys that were elite defenders, leaders in the clubhouse, 300 hitters, right. And they've both moved on to pro ball. Yeah. It might be a pretty broad question, but how do you replace those 2 guys, not only as players but as leaders?
Well, I don't think it's really hard to replace them because they were good and they had really, you know, strong personalities. One of our biggest challenges is not necessarily replacing the physical parts of the guys we lost, but replacing some of the personalities that we had, like Schmidt, like Brady Kirkpatrick, he didn't play last year because he was hurt, but he had a really strong bearing on what happened with us. But every guy we lost, we knew we were going to lose. So there was no surprises. So we had a plan in place to replace those guys. Most of them, they're all seniors with the exception of Charlie, and I didn't think Charlie was going to come back for a 5th year anyway. So it wasn't like there was any surprises. So we had a plan in place. We have good young players in the program. And we expect them to step in and to be good in their roles. And we have a lot of good experienced guys coming back. So those experienced guys will have to pull some of the weight for the guys we lost. And I don't feel like we have a lack of physical talent. I think it's just a matter of guys playing together and understanding they got to give and take a little bit and be patient until we get it figured out as far as what a regular rotation will be.
And those 2 guys led the team in stolen bases last year. Charlie's the school's all-time leader, and Charlie was also a fixture in the leadoff spot. Yeah. So who do you see on this year's team that could replace them as far as the leadoff spot and being a kind of a demon on the base paths, because those were your 2 main guys as far as speed goes? I
mean, I think, you know, looking at it now, we'll probably take a look at hitting Brandon Lau first. He's a, you know, he doesn't come across necessarily as being like a base stealer, so to speak, as Charlie did, but I mean, he is a 6'6" runner, and his instincts are very good. Plus, he's one of our best hitters, so I want to get him to the plate as many times as I can, as long as he stays healthy. So, you know, are we going to miss Charlie and Blake? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But I do think that with Brandon up there, Lamont Wade has really developed as being a base stealer and a plus runner. And I think we feel really comfortable with those two guys in those spots. You know, our two young infielders, Andrew Bechtold and Kevin Smith, very good defenders at different positions. If we need them to play different positions, they're both runners. They're good offensive players. So it'll be a combination of guys that will replace those two guys.
Now, I was gonna ask you about the freshmen too, because you have an enormous incoming recruiting class as well as some redshirt freshmen. Yeah. Out of that whole big group, I know there's a lot of guys. Who should we be aware of that could potentially make a big impact early on this year?
Well, I think certainly not one guy. I think Bechtold and Smith on the offensive side of the ball. Bechtold, Smith, and Justin Morris, left-hand hitting catcher / first baseman. He'll play a little bit of first for us too. And I think on the pitching end of things, there's three pretty quality arms there. Initially, that should make a pretty big splash. And Taylor Bloom, Brian Schaefer, and Willie Rios. So that would, just initially, I would say those six. But we have Jamal Wade had a great fall for us. He's come a lot quicker than we thought he would have. So we feel pretty good about a lot of these guys. I also like the fact that we have enough experienced players where we don't have to put too much pressure on any one of those guys initially. We can kind of let them develop and not have to feel like they have to be the guy, and right out of the gate when they're 18, 19 years old. That's tough. So.
Last question. What's your main specific goal for this season as a team, and how do you achieve it?
I don't know that I can really set a goal and say, hey, I hope we go to Omaha, or I hope we do this, or win 40 games. I just hope that we continue to progress each time we get out there, because I think we have enough ability, we have enough pitching, our defense is strong enough where I think if we continue to progress as last year's team did and not peak at a certain time or not get too selfish about things and have poor attitudes, I think if we can stay away from those things, I think the end product will take care of itself. And I know that sounds like a cliche, it really does. I mean, obviously, I hope we do end up one win better and get to Omaha, I think we all do. But I think that as long as we keep progressing gradually as we have, I think that kind of stuff will take care of itself, kind of like it did last year.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time and certainly wish you the best of luck this season, and we're excited to be there along with you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.